Hey, welcome to the Small Business Made Simple podcast, brought to you by socialmediaandmarketing.com.au. Being in business is never easy, but it can be simple, or at least simpler. Join me, your host Jen Donovan, every week where we focus on marketing, social media, and working towards simplifying your business. You with me? Let's do this.
If you're gonna dream it big, 'cause someone out there listening. Everyone's got a voice to give, and it's time I heard you whistling, 'cause there's no point at all, in dreaming small.
Why, hey there, my fabulous listener. Welcome to episode 272 of the Small Business Made Simple podcast. Thank you, as always, for lending me your ears today. I know you have lots of choices of things to be doing with your time, and I do appreciate you making my podcast one of them. Did you know that it's 9 weeks till the end of January? That's pretty crazy, right? So why am I telling you this? Well, I'm telling you this because I have a 9-week marketing transformation program, which is going to be perfect for you if you want to get your marketing humming and booming before February next year. Because let's face it, lots of businesses that we work with and lots of our own businesses really hit the ground running come February. So if you want 2024 to be different in your business, maybe it starts with your marketing being different. So my 9-week marketing transformation program just could be the answer you're looking for. It's currently on sale for $497, which is a saving of $500, and also includes a bonus of 2 30-minute sessions with me, which is worth almost $300. So really, you're paying like $197 for the program. Anyway, if you're thinking, yep, I need my marketing to look different in 2024, I've got 9 weeks until the end of February to make that transformation, then head to my website, socialmediaandmarketing.com.au/shop, and have a look at the 9-week transformation program there, or come to the show notes and you can get the whole page there all about my 9-week marketing transformation program. Of course, you can find the show notes at socialmediaandmarketing.com.au/272. Did you get a chance to listen to my episode last week? It's one of my favorite podcast episodes to do for the year because it was all about my word of the year, where I encourage you to choose a word of the year. I explain what my own word of the year is going to be, and I also really encourage you as to why you should choose a word of a year and explain to you how it's managed to change my life. If you haven't had a listen to that episode, head back to episode 271 and have a bit of a listen to that, of course, after you're finished here with this episode. So this year, my big project has been writing a book. Small Town, Big Impact is the name of the book. It's got 107 simple marketing strategies for regional business success. It was published in November, just a few weeks ago. And if you haven't got your copy, you can, of course, go to my website and find your copy. But since publishing the book, loads of people have reached out to me about the process. And that's what I thought would be a really interesting podcast. Maybe you are thinking, what's the goal for next year? What am I going to do that's different? I've always wanted to write a book. I've never thought about writing a book, but I'm curious, Jen. Tell me more. Whatever that looks like for you, I thought, I would dedicate a podcast episode to talking a little bit about how I went about publishing my book for the first time. Maybe, you're curious as well, so keep listening in. But even if you're not, even if you think I'm never going to publish a book, Jen, you know what? If you live through the pandemic, you've got a book in you. I think we've all got 1 or 2 books inside us. It's just whether or not I guess whether or not it makes it to the top of the leaderboard in order to get done, which of course mine did in 2023. And given the amount of the people who have reached out and thinking there's probably more people that haven't reached out that are still curious, I thought I'd give some thoughts, ideas, and share my experience here in this podcast about publishing a book. Again, even if you've never thought about it, maybe after this episode you will. So let's begin the podcast with maybe some less happy things about publishing a book. I call them negative things, but some realities of publishing a book. So first of all, I remember listening to a podcast a little while ago, and there were authors talking on this particular podcast about publishing books, and just casually mentioned that most Australian authors struggle to make over $10,000 selling their book. Now, I believe these authors were novel writers, not business books as such. They were more novels, so stories. But that's really interesting. So heads up, writing a book's probably not going to make you rich. Or book sales probably won't make you rich. Through book sales alone, it's not just it's I guess my point is don't write a book thinking it's going to make you $1 million. Because if it's true and most make about $10,000, then frankly that doesn't even cover what I paid to get the book made. My book, in all honesty, as great as it is basically a glorified business card. Most business books are, if the authors are honest. Many mentors over many years have said to me, Jen, if you want to go to the next level, you have to write a book. Were they right? Give me 12 months and I'll let you know. But so far, so good. And I tend to agree with them. I can already feel the elevation of my thought leadership since publishing this book, or really since talking about the fact that I was writing a book. I've made good sales on my book so far, and I do hope to sell a lot more of those books. But my book was written not only to change the way business owners look at their marketing and how they market their business, but it was to open new doors for me as a speaker, as an author, and as a thought leader in the marketing space. It was one of my how do I stand out from a crowded marketplace? There is a marketer for every corner of every street in Australia. My podcast 5 years ago was my way of standing out. My book in 2023 is another way that I want to that I want to stand out from the crowded marketplace. And honestly, my money will come from those three things, from being a speaker, an author, and a thought leader. It's not necessarily going to come from book sales. Your book might be different. I hope your book is different, but it might not be either. So don't go writing a book thinking it's going to make you $1 million. Quite possibly the money will come from other income streams. Okay, there's a chapter in my book also called Start with the End in Mind. And honestly, I live that 100%. This book was written with an end goal, a very sustainable, steadfast goal. I knew exactly why I was writing this book for me and for my audience. So I knew why I wanted to write it for me, and I knew why I wanted to write it for my audience. And if you want to write a book, figure this bit out first. What's the end goal? Because if you can't really make money out of the book sales, if they're not going to make you rich, then where will the money come from? How are you going to make money out of this book? What's the end goal for the book? Is it even to make money? I don't know. That's up to you. This is a business book, so it is to make money for me. So start with the end in mind. Think about why you want to write the book and have a really sustainable, steadfast goal behind that. All right. So that's just a bit of, I guess, somewhat reality, maybe a little bit negative around writing books. So let's get into some more positive stuff. If you are a content writer like me, you can definitely write a book. My book has 107 simple marketing strategies in it because I've been podcasting for 5 years and blogging for 7, and I've got lots of content already. And I use a lot of this content in my book as well. Much of it needed updating for sure. But when I was thinking about how many strategies am I going to put in this book, so much of those ideas came from the content I already had. The book, like I said, it's got 107. So although I might have written a piece or did a podcast maybe 3 years ago on email marketing and the content needed updating, I was able to use bits of it. And also I had the bones of my book content from headings and ideas and strategies that I'd already talked about being a content creator for potentially the last sort of 7 years or so. I think for me also, the structure of the book worked really well for my brain and how my brain works. Again, 107 simple marketing strategies. It meant that I didn't have to write the book from the start to the end. I could kind of write whatever I felt like writing on the day So, if I felt like writing about radio as a marketing strategy that day, I got to write about radio. If social media was making me really cranky that day, I didn't write about social media and so on and so forth. So it was kind of like I wrote all these strategies and then I collated them into a book and then top and tailed them obviously with different chapters. But that's kind of it worked really well for me not to have to sit there and go, okay, I'm up to a page 101. I need to write a page 102 today. I could just kind of write what was tickling my fancy for the day. Now, I didn't use a project management system to track my book. I know there'll be listeners out there going, what? Jen, it would have made it so much easier. I find project management systems just don't work well inside my brain. I don't think like that. Or maybe I just haven't come across the one that I find really easy. So I use an Excel spreadsheet with color codes and numbers and columns and things like that. I listed all the chapters in my spreadsheet. So a chapter to me might have been social media, but there might have been 20 tips under social media or email marketing, and there was like 10 tips under that, or classic marketing strategies, and there was 17 tips under that. So I used my project management system to kind of, um, you know, write down the chapters and then color coded what I'd done as I went, like, finished. I also wrote how many words were in that particular chapter and how many strategies were in that chapter. Um, and so I really had a good sense of what was left to do, what I had done, what my word count was, and all of that, because I wanted to write, a book that had thud capacity to it. I wanted to put it on a desk and make it go thud. So that would, again, start with the end in mind. I knew how many words approximately I wanted my book to be. And so, I made sure that I was tracking that inside my spreadsheet. So I just kept writing until the writing ran out, basically. But the spreadsheet, perfect. You don't need a project management system. You can have one if you want, if that's the way you work best. But spreadsheet with colors works fine. I'd highly recommend that you get yourself a book coach and some author friends. Now, I attended Andrew Griffith's 4-day book writing retreat back in March 2023, and that's where I planned my book on sticky notes all over a window. If you follow me on social media, there's a photo of it. I wrote the first chapter. Where it all began for me, basically, was the kind of the premise of the first chapter within those 4 days while I was on the retreat, and Andrew reviewed that and gave me feedback on it. Now, for me, that feedback was invaluable because I didn't really think, even though I had invested in a book writing retreat because my friend Tracy Sheehan made me go. She didn't really, but I went because she was going. I don't think I would have went on my own, but I didn't actually have the faith in myself that I could write a book. So getting that feedback around the way I write naturally and the engagingness, is that even a word? My ability to engage the reader, really gave me the confidence to say, "Yep, okay, I'll do this." Like I knew marketing, but did I have did I have author qualities? Like I wasn't convinced about this. So, yeah, so that feedback was really valuable. That was well worth me going just for that. Otherwise, I'm not really sure that I would ever have written the book. On the 4-day retreat, I also met Michael Hanrahan from Publish Central, a Melbourne-based company, and it was Michael's company that I basically hired to publish the book. A lot of people have asked if I self-published, and according to what I learnt on the 4-day book writing retreat, I did what is called a hybrid model of publishing. So it's not self-published and it's not a publishing house as such. Like my friend Katrina, she was saying when she wrote her first book, she interviewed and hired an editor. She interviewed and hired a proofreader. And yes, they are different people. An editor and a proofreader are different people. There's an entirely different skill. See, these are the little things that I learnt from writing a book that I had no idea about. And then, of course, she dealt with the printer of the book. I did none of that. I wrote the book. I handed it to Michael as a second draft in early August this year. Then he sent it back with the "it's too long," cut 25,000 words out of it, and that was tough. That was really tough, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. And then I handed him the third draft in early September, that then went to the amazing, Karen Kuma, who is an author herself, but in this case, she was my editor. Then back and forth to me quite a few times to proofread, and then almost the day before the printer, it went to a proofreader, and then I signed it off. You know, the final draft of the book got signed off, and it arrived at my door 2 weeks after I'd signed it off, as a printed book. So that I know that sounds really simple, but that was basically my process. I dealt with Michael, I dealt with Anna, I had a few conversations with Karen, my editor, who was brilliant, mind you, so brilliant and so encouraging, and yeah, had some really great um, editing suggestions for me as well. Um, so I particularly didn't like the idea of doing it myself because I just don't have time. And I didn't really like the idea of a publishing house. Maybe next time I will, now I know so much more. But I wanted full control over everything. And I've been led to believe by people who go through publishing houses, that you lose control over certain things. Like, for instance, you mightn't get to choose the book cover, you mightn't get to choose the layout of the book, you mightn't get to choose who actually speaks the audio version of the book, and so forth. So that scared me as a first time author. So I feel like the hybrid model worked really well for me. And as a first-time author, yeah, it was a good choice to go with Publish Central, and Michael's team, was great. You know, Anna, she talked me off a few ledges, quite a few times. So and, my biggest fear was the front cover, and that was probably my sticking point, getting to the beautiful front cover that I think I have now. That was a lot of work. I don't know, sometimes I think it was harder work than actually writing the book, but anyway, some more on that maybe on another podcast. So, that lends me to the question, was writing the book hard? That's the other question that I get asked quite a lot, and kind of. The writing wasn't hard. Honestly, it literally poured out my fingers onto the keyboard, onto the screen. It's a marketing book. I live, breathe, dream, talk about marketing every single day. The topic was what I know best. It wasn't new to me. I know marketing. So the content side wasn't hard. And I felt like when I was in the right space, like it literally just fell out of me. The thoughts, my fingers just typed. It wasn't that hard. What was hard was the self-sabotage. Who am I to be writing a book? Really? You don't even have a marketing degree. Who's going to listen to you anyway? Are you really a marketing expert? Blah, blah, blah. This is the bit that I struggle with. Having author friends and just good friends and family, and having Andrew in my corner, that was good. That was really good. I had to be talked down a few times, and I have to say, if I'm being completely honest, I did have 2 quite significant breakdowns whilst writing the book. The second time I actually had a significant breakdown was actually posting the book to people who had purchased it. The thought of someone reading it and judging me, that was a pretty rough day. I don't actually think that people are going to judge me or judge it, but in my head that day, I spiraled a lot. That was a really tough day. And it still, makes me a little bit nervous, the thought of someone reading something. You know why? Because I podcast all the time and people listen to me and take action from different things that I say. But I just felt different writing the book and then actually sending it to people who purchased it. My first breakdown was trying to get my book from 95,000 words down to about 65 or 70,000 words. Now, this took me a whole week to get my head around, and I just couldn't think where I was going to get those words from. After a week of most emotions, crying, being angry, being frustrated, and all of that, I did exactly what my brain needed me to do and how I work best. I think I was coming home from Melbourne at the time, quiet car, thinking about things. How am I going to get this done? So I came up with a mathematical equation. My brain is quite math orientated. I don't use it for maths very much anymore, but as a school student many years ago, maths was my thing. So I turned it into a mathematical equation, which looked like 165,000 words divided by 107 strategies equaled about 600 or 700 words each. So just go. Go. I highlighted every section, and if it was under 600 words, I didn't do anything with it. If it was over, I culled. And in the end, after a week of crying and being angry and frustrated, it took me about 2 hours to cull. And it was done. It was done within 2 hours once I found the solution. So that was a really interesting, I think that was on a Sunday night that I did that, and I was so proud of myself when I sent it off Monday morning. Done. No mention of all the tears and anger that had gone into it for the 7 days preceding that. Actually, there was another breakdown now I come to think about it. It was 2 days before I went to print actually, and I was supposed to, get the book back. So I got the book back for the very last time to go through, and I was only allowed minor changes. So really minor changes, maybe a word here, a word there, maybe a comma. Nothing that changed the layout of the book. And if you have a look at my book, there is there is a definitely a layout of the book. So I couldn't add anything that changed the page, because then that would change the next page, and the flow on effect, of course, is enormous when you have a book. And of course, that would adjust the layout, which would delay printing, which would also cost me more money. So I got the book back and I was reading through it, and all of a sudden it struck me that I had forgotten to put in a really obvious tip. Something so freaking obvious that I cannot believe to this day that I forgot to put it in as a tip. So it should be 108 social media. I'm sorry, 108 marketing strategies, but it's not, because I forgot something. Now, I'm not going to tell you what it was because I feel really stupid that I forgot this particular. And I did manage to slip in a few words here and there over a few different chapters that made sense. So at least I was alluding to this tip, that it was something to take notice of, but it should have had its own section. It 100% should have had its own 600 or 700 words, but it didn't. And I missed it. I don't know how I missed it. Anyway, I feel really stupid even just talking about it here. I can't believe I did that. Anyway, one of the biggest questions, of course, that people have around writing a book, that maybe they're not willing to ask is, how much did it cost, Jen? So let me tell you. So not including my time to write the darn book, because that would just, make it astronomical. And not including the book writing retreat that I went on, it cost about $17,000, and that was about 400 copies of my book. So it's a big investment. It's absolutely a big investment. But you know what? I know it's going to return to me tenfold in the next 12 to 24 months. So I'm like, yep, I am prepared to invest that amount of money in myself and in my thought leadership, because it's an investment. So I don't look at it as an expense, but yeah, that's how much it cost me. So, my advice to you, just to wrap up this episode, because it's been going for a little while now, is if you want to write a book, one, know your subject really well, and the writing bit will be simple. Maybe not easy, but simple. Number two, get yourself a book coach and surround yourself with authors that can talk you off ledges, because it's going to come. You are going to get the imposter syndrome. You are going to get the process, all the different emotions as you write this book. You need people to be on your team. So definitely surround yourself with the right people. Number three, look, I'm just going to say it. attend Andrew Griffiths's. That's really hard to say, Andrew, if you're listening to this. Sorry. Attend AJ's 4-day book writing retreat. He has a virtual one and a real life one. The link, of course, is in the show notes, or just go to Andrew Griffith with an S on the end, .com.au/events and have a look there. And tell him Jen sent you. Reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Like, I've answered quite a lot of questions here, but of course, there's lots more that I could tell you. I just don't want this podcast to go for 2 hours. So reach out if you have any other questions. More than happy to chat. Number 5, know the end game of the book. Start with the end in mind. I actually wrote the last 2 pages first. And that might seem really weird, but for me, I always read the last 2 pages of any book that I pick up first. So it made sense in my head to write the last 2 pages first. So they were the first 2 pages that I write. So know the end game. Start with the end in mind. Not saying you should write the last 2 pages first, but start with the end in mind. Why are you writing this book? What do you want out of it? Investigate what type of publishing will work best for you. Don't just look at the price though. Just don't go, oh, that's the cheapest option. I'll go with that. It's going to work best for you. Otherwise, you won't finish. Yes, self-publishing is cheaper. It could be significantly cheaper, but do you have time to find the best editor, to find the best proofreader? Do you have time to be dealing with the actual publisher, the actual printer? Your time is worth money as well. So work out which one works best for you. But just don't look at the price. And 7, just get started. Get out the sticky notes and start making a plan, or start a spreadsheet, or just start typing. Let book inside you just ooze its way out. It's in there. You know it. I know it. Just let it come out. Small Town, Big Impact was my first book, although I'd written a chapter for a book collective before, so that might be a really good way to start for you as well if you're curious. But I guarantee you it won't be my last book. I already have 3 ideas for books to write, but Small Town, Big Impact will be my book for the next couple of years. Andrew Griffith says, write a good book every 2 years. So that's my mantra. In 2 years, I will write another book. But right now, Small Town, Big Impact is it. I hope you really enjoyed this little look behind closed doors of the process of me writing Small Town, Big Impact. If you haven't got your copy yet and you'd like one, just head to my website, socialmediamarketing.com.au. But that's it. That's it for episode 272. Like I said, I hope you liked it. I hope you found it valuable. If you can leave a rating and review where you are listening to this, I would love that. That would make me so very happy, especially at this festive time of the year. Otherwise, I'll see you next week on podcast episode 273. There's only 3 more to go till the end of the year. How scary is that? Remember, my 9-week marketing transformation program is on sale now. In 9 weeks, we hit February. You can still be in the same position with your marketing, or if you're willing to put in the work right now, you can really reap those rewards for 2024. Just go to my website and you will find the marketing transformation program there, or come to the show notes and get the link. But in the meantime, if we aren't social on social, come and find me on Instagram, Facebook, or of course LinkedIn. But whatever you do, remember, my small business peep, as my opening song says, there is no point in dreaming small.
No time like the present. Tell it like you feel it, say it proud, be true, and let us see you for the star that you are. No point in dreaming small.
I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Yorta Yorta people, on which I record this podcast and conduct my business today, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I extend this respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here with us today as well.